Welcome to Graph 101 with two men and an Icelandic deity.
I think that's Jóhannes, right? Not me.
I thought it was him. Okay. Yeah, okay.
So, guys, to this point so far, we've done an awful lot with Microsoft Graph. We've explored really what a REST API is. We have explored the various tools like Graph Explorer or developer tools and things like that, where we can really explore the APIs and figure out how to find the different endpoints and methods and things we need to call. And that's cool. That's great. But there's got to be some more practical applications of all of this. So I think that's what I'd like to explore next. So do either of you really have something practical that you've wanted to do with Graph?
Jake,
a lot comes to mind. I mean, what do you got, Jóhannes?
Well, yeah, same. A lot comes to mind. One use case that has been top of my mind for a while is I need to find all the devices that belong to a particular set of users.
Okay.
I need to find, like, for some reason, you need to deploy something to the devices and not to the users, but those devices must belong to those users, like everyone in the finance department or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I gotcha. I know there's been a couple, that I've seen recently, like whether it's on like the WinAdmins Discord or on Reddit, like, how much free space, a device has. I mean, you can go look that up pretty easily if I recall, but like making a group that's based on, or a dynamic group that's based on how much free space is left or less than that. I haven't really seen any things for that yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely a common use case.
Yeah, I think those are both really good use cases. I know I've played a little bit before with the with creating device groups based on the primary user, and that's definitely a good thing to explore. But I think that could go a little bit deeper. I like Jake's idea here. Let's look at what we can get by pretty much how much space is available. Maybe we need to install AutoCAD on a computer or something, and we want to make sure we don't fill up the hard drive.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Well, I guess if we want to switch over, we can take a peek at a desktop and kind of like whiteboard this out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the first thing is when we create a dynamic group, what can we do with that?
Well, let's kind of like type this out since we are whiteboarding it. So you basically want to grab devices that have, I don't know, what do you think, like less than 30 gigs? Does that sound like, especially like for AutoCAD, things like that have less than 30 gigabytes of free space or free storage space?
Okay.
And we want it to do like a dynamic group like you had mentioned. So let's maybe go figure out what we can all do with dynamic groups.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot.
It's been a while since I've made one, so I don't recall all the different attributes like off the top of my head.
There is a great docs page that covers both dynamic groups for users and devices. And
I've seen that.
I think we'll have to maybe link that down below if we can remember to grab the link for that.
Yeah, let me find it.
I usually end up referencing that group to tell everybody, no, you can't use OU, even though it's in the list. But the important stuff.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, so we got our group here, default security group, membership type. That's where you want it to be a dynamic. And we want it to be device because we're looking for storage space, right?
Yeah, so that should be easy enough.
And then we can add our dynamic query. Let's what's available. Account enabled, object, display, OS type. That doesn't really help us. Model, manufacturer, ownership, OU, like you had just mentioned.
Yeah.
There really isn't much here, I think, that would help us out.
I didn't see anything about storage space, but if we look at the device in Intune, don't we see that listed in the properties?
Yeah, let's go check that out. I know I've seen it for sure, but things do change all the time. So let's pop over to our devices here. We'll go on the desktop here. If I recall, it's like on the hardware tab.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's our storage information. So free storage space, total storage space. I mean, it definitely has more than 30, but at least we know that it's here.
Yeah, it's got what, just under 50. It looks like, actually.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm not a math major. So.
I mean, if free storage, it has.
Oh, that's free storage. Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry,
not like remaining. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
They tried to not make me do math, and I tried to do math.
So we know that value here like exists in Intune or on like for that device. So we kind of want to tie that back to some kind of group option here. Now, I noticed in the property menu, we've got like these extension attributes.
Oh, yeah.
Which I believe, lets us do our own like quote unquote custom attributes for devices that we could add. So
that's great. Can we just put in like, right there, extension attribute 1, and for the value, put free space less than 30 gigabytes or something? Does that work?
I don't think it's going to work like that. But I think we can probably look at like we could probably assign an extension attribute to the device or user in this case, but a device, and search for that specific thing. So we probably aren't going to say like, here's like 30 gigs or things like that, but you probably want to come up with a tag, so to speak, or an attribute that would indicate that it is indeed less than that 30 that we kind of had talked about.
Okay.
I think we could probably have some fun with that too, as far as the tag goes. But I mean, like, let's go look at the device in Azure too. Like,
yeah.
What do we see there? We'll copy and paste this because we are fantastic about cleaning up our devices in both Intune and AAD, as you can see. So we've got our device here. So Adams,
Hey, look at that at the bottom.
Yeah, there's our extension attributes, and it doesn't look like we have any right now. And how many did it say that we could do? Like
20?
15, up
15.
to
15. Okay.
I mean, that's quite a few. And we only really, I think, need one.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could probably do some fun stuff. Like, what do we want the extension, attribute to be? You could do like good old PEBCAC or ID10T.
Those would be great, because why are you usually running out of space on a computer?
It's usually a user's issue. Unless you're buying really small laptops, 128 gigabyte SSDs here and there. But so as we're like kind of whiteboarding this out, like let's write down some of the steps that we've got. So we want to grab any devices that have less than 30 gigabytes free of storage space, add them to a dynamic device group based on a custom attribute.
Okay.
If I could spell, that'd be great. And I know that's still technically spelled wrong, but we're going to leave it because we're all
we allow it.
Make mistakes. Exactly. Should open this up on just regular WordPad. But so we've got that. And I think we want to make that custom attribute equal, what, like PEBCAC isn't like we had mentioned.
Yeah, that works.
Have a little bit of fun with it. Maybe don't do that in production if other people can see. Because at the end of the day, if you didn't know, everybody in your organization is a reader within AAD, so they could go and see this potentially. So definitely, keep it user friendly there. But so I mean, with that, we need to be able to get information from Intune, and then add that particular attribute to the AAD object, essentially.
Okay.
They are two different things, if I recall.
So we should be able to just like return the Azure device object, maybe?
I think it might be a little bit more complicated than that. So like we're looking at the Azure device right now, right? And we see we've got like an object ID.
Yeah. Let's go to Graph Explorer maybe and try and return that device ID.
Let's do that.
Let's see what we can see. It's aka.ms/GE.
I am a Google boy at heart. Oops. And we probably should want to sign in
We probably should, yes. So we know that Azure devices are under graph.microsoft.com/devices.
And then another slash, and let's do the proper slash.
And we should be able
device
to just,
ID.
paste in our device ID.
And we verified that's the it's object. I mean, we'll see when we get back.
Ooh,
we get
look
that.
at that.
Cool.
So we see that we've
storage space.
You see that we've got an ID, but we've also got a device ID, and they're different.
Well, that's weird.
Interesting. I mean, let's copy this down, in our file, just so that we have.
Yeah. So the object ID would just be the ID.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's weird.
Object here, just to make it a little more obvious.
So is the hard drive space?
What was that?
Is the hard drive space stored in here at all?
Let's look. I mean, Dell, it's Latitude, Windows.
Oh, there's a bunch more IDs right there, guys.
Ooh, yeah, physical
Would
ID.
you look at that?
Huh. The hardware ID. Fun.
CTP ID.
Hey,
extension attributes. Again, they're blank right now. We don't have any.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing as far as storage space is concerned. But
what's that other device ID?
Yeah, it's this. You're talking about the one right here, 68. Yeah, and we don't really see that anywhere on the device here, at least in AAD. So it's definitely an interesting one. But I mean, do you think Intune maybe has?
It has another device ID.
Yeah, it's got a different device ID, but we have an Azure AD device ID too.
Yeah.
Let's grab those and see, kind of compare.
Azure
AD device ID matches
the device ID.
The device ID for Azure, so that makes sense. But the actual object in AAD has a different value, and the Intune object has a different value. And ultimately, it's because they're two separate entities. I mean, it's kind of like why you can delete or wipe a device or retire it from Intune, but then you also need to go into AAD and remove it there.
Okay.
Two different references.
So, do you know why the object ID and the device ID are different?
That one I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It sounds like you might, Sean.
I might know the answer. So what the object ID is here, it's literally the ID for that specific object, regardless of what type of object it is. So later on, and this actually might come up later with what we're doing here, since we want to do some things with group membership, if you need to add and remove users or devices from groups, you actually use the object ID. You don't use the device ID, just because that's what those groups are looking for. And that's why if you look in most static groups, you can actually add both users and devices to it because they use that object ID instead.
Gotcha. So it exists on both. So it sounds like if we ever wanted to do like something Jóhannes had mentioned earlier, do your different grouping of Intune devices based on, whatever attribute that's like a static group that you're adding to, you'd have to query 3 potential places. So both Intune, AAD, and the group side.
Yeah.
Quite absolutely. A bit.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Maybe we can dive into that in another episode too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a lot of stuff, when we're trying to whiteboard things out.
Yeah. So I think we still need to find where we'll find that hard drive information, right?
Yeah, well, we know that it exists on the Intune object, and if I'm switching to the wrong screen here. So if we go like Graph Explorer, we know it's what, managed devices?
Yep. Or device management. / managed devices. I do that all day long.
And we want to go, I forget, we need to do the ID here.
There we go.
All right.
Hey,
we got our ID. There's our user ID. The name, blah, blah, blah. We got a lot of info here.
What are those numbers?
That looks like what we need. Now, that number looks a heck of a lot different than 188 gigabytes. I wonder what magical math is happening there. There's a little bit of sarcasm. It's obviously we're taking a look at these in megabytes, yeah. So on the actual Intune device, we're looking for free storage space in bytes, essentially, like this value. So we're going to need that value from the Intune device. On the Azure side, we're going to need, well, actually from both, we're going to need the device ID and the Azure AD device ID.
Yeah.
And Intune. We need that. So we'll grab both of those and we're going to basically add a extension attribute to that device, this device right here, that is, on the Azure side. That sound right? Did I overcomplicate that? Is that all flowing?
That makes sense to me. Jóhannes?
These things tend to look ridiculously complicated on the face of it. But it tends to become more intuitive the more you use this. So, dear watcher, don't freak out just yet.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier than you might think.
Yeah.
But thinking at like a high level, it definitely, we're all human at the end of the day. None of us learn this in a fortnight or a night, essentially. There's a lot of messing up and breaking dev environments. I've totally never done this in production. Never.
What's a dev environment? I've never heard of it.
It's really just prod after hours.
After hours? What's that?
Yeah, after hours. Oh, you're not working overtime, Sean? Clearly you're not working hard enough.
I'm a consultant.
But so I mean, we've got kind of got an idea as far as that's concerned. I mean, we know that like with the scripts and things that we've been working with today, we're still going to need pretty much the exact same permissions on that Azure app registration that we had talked about previously, or we already have created. So we need, device read write. We'll need managed devices, at least read on that side of things, because we're not changing anything to the Intune object. We're just grabbing the storage space that's available. And we won't need anything group related because it's going to be a dynamic group. So as far as permissions concerned, it's semi straightforward. And again, it was one of those things that you'll learn as you go. And obviously the URLs you're going to are going to get picked up as well.
Yeah. So will Graph itself do that, or do we have to plug it in somewhere else to make it take those devices with less than 30 gigabytes and add them directly into or add that extension attribute?
So we're definitely going to have to do a graph call to, first of all, get all the devices that have those like less than 30. So it sounds like we're most likely going to have to do the search on all the devices in our environment with a filter.
Okay.
Specifically on free storage space and bytes. And obviously we're not going to do 188 gigs or whatever that translates to in megabytes. But it's going to be, 30 gigabytes, which again will translate into megabytes instead. And then from there, we can grab the Intune Azure AD device ID that it also has, and we'll then apply or patch send a patch command to those devices in Azure, not on Intune, in Azure, with that custom extension attribute.
Okay. And so we'll just do that with like a PowerShell script?
Yeah, essentially. Okay. I mean, that's what we've been using so far. And I think that's a great place to start as far as actually automating a task. We'll write it in PowerShell. We can obviously do some pretty advanced things later on. I know we're going to definitely talk about some things, and much later in the series, like function apps, Azure automation, containerizing things. Throwing the word Kubernetes makes people freak out a little bit. Definitely a lot of fun stuff. I'd say maybe outside of the scope of what a lot of just standard mem admins do, but you're expanding your knowledge. And again, you can use this on more than just Graph, which is really cool. But forgive me, I talk a lot and I'm rambling, but
We noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I talk almost too much. So,
but I think we've got a pretty good idea on what we want to do here. You know, and then obviously once we actually put that custom extension attribute on the device, that whatever group dynamic group that we create is automatically just going to grab that device and put it in the group for us. Now it's the age-old, you know, waiting problem that we run into, since dynamic device groups tend to take a little while to run and process. So of course you got to bust out the, you know, good old XKDC. You know, the number one mem admin excuse for legitimately slacking off. You know, we're waiting for a sync, or it's syncing, or compiling. You know, the original. But I think that's a good enough idea as far as like whiteboarding it out. I think the next episode we'll actually try to script it live
okay.
and, you know, see where we go from there. Does that sound good, guys?
That sounds good to me.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, obviously, any questions, comments, concerns, maybe you're going to tell us that we're doing something wrong, or we should really be looking for devices, you know, with something completely different. You know, please let us know. But other than that, have a great one. Bye.